Welcome back. All right, first time today I haven't been wearing a Montreal jersey for a video. There you go. And it's a review for the two matinee games today. Washington, Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Minnesota. There's 4 games in the schedule for tonight. So, relatively light Sunday after what, was really busy busy Wednesday and a busy Friday. The weekend's actually been kind of quiet, relatively speaking, other than the news. The news has been it's been something today, hasn't it? And you get the feeling it may not be over yet. All right, first up, we're going to talk about Washington and Carolina, and it felt like this was a very important game for both teams. And the dislike between these teams is still pretty high, even though there's a lot of turnover that's happened on both teams. Most teams, there's been a lot of turnover. But it's Samsonov versus Anderson, and this is the kind of game that Samsonov, he looked really good today. And yet it started out looking a little shaky, and that Samsonov gets wiped out by his own player about 10 seconds in. And they're lucky that Carolina doesn't bury it there. Carolina wearing their black jerseys, which traditionally they do very well. They have a very good record wearing. Then there was a post for Aho during that first shift as well. So Carolina goes the other way and they get an opportunity. Dowd was denied shortly after that. Jarvis had a rush chance that was defended. Protas fires one wide for the Capitals. Fast, wide open start. Lots of opportunities at both ends. Orlov blocks Aho to Necas. So Aho tries to get through. Orlov says no. Orlov had a very good game. Teravainen's denied. The Canes would push. The Canes draw a power play with that pressure they had. The Caps did kill that off. Power plays, not as prominent in this one as you might have thought with 4 top teams in the NHL duking it out. Big Wilson hit and Kotkaniemi. Kotkaniemi got up and then threw a hit of his own as well. Canes go to the power play. There's some scrumminess going on, as that's called. Shorthanded chance for Carlson ends up going wide. The Caps did kill it off. And then Jarvis was denied shortly after it finished. Pressed by the Caps with 2.5 minutes left, and they had opportunities in the final minute. So coming out of that first period, the Canes lead in shots, but Washington was getting some opportunities. Second period, Protas had a break. That was denied. The Caps get an early power play. Strong penalty kill for the Canes. That's killed off. Samsonov stops the Svechnikov shot. The Caps would press at 7.5 minutes. The game settled down, and it felt like, hey, the defense is doing well for both teams. But Ovechkin's on the ice, and he gets another goal from Orlov and Wilson to 11:58. Really slowing down that Ovechkin, right? 19 goals now. Yeah, he's slowing down. And it was a great no-look pass by Orlov. One of the easiest goals that Ovechkin's ever scored right there. Protas then adds one at 12:57. It was initially shown as unassisted, but Carlson was given an assist later. So it's 2-0 for the Caps. Canes try to answer, and they're out there hitting. A lot of hits by Carolina, and I'm going to go ahead and say that the number of hits on this game seemed low, comparatively speaking, with what I saw out there. It seemed like a really heavy game. So Ovechkin had a shot that deflects out. The Caps draw a penalty. Wilson and Brendan Smith, unfriendly. Brendan Smith, of course, was with the Rangers last year, so the whole Panarin thing, remember? Yeah, so he remembers. More disagreement in the closing seconds between these teams, but the Capitals have a 2-0 lead going to the third. Third period, first minute, Caps power play. Really strong penalty kill by the Canes. Kills it off, so that puts the Caps at 0 for 3. Trocheck fires one wide. The Canes press. Samsonov was busy in the first half, and at 6:22, the Canes do get one. Kotkaniemi, who seems to be heating up, from Martinook and D'Angelo. So Kotkaniemi, that's his, I believe, 5th of the season. Could be 5th. I think it's his 5th or 6th. Either way. Canes pressed to tie. Shea with the near miss there. Slavin had a shot that was kicked aside. The momentum's all Carolina. And it felt like the dislike and the physicality is ramping up in the third period too. Post for Hagelin, and then the Canes get a power play. So that's one of those switches, right? Where like if Hagelin scores there, then that's the end of that play. But the Canes end up with a power play during that play. Niederreiter would score just after that power play ends from Necas and Pesce at 13:32. And it was a turnover. So the Caps had killed it. And then they turn it over at neutral ice, and Niederreiter ends up getting a goal at the end of that. So it's tied up. With 5 minutes left, the Caps get a power play. And then Aho with a slash, and it was a slash, makes it a 5-on-3 for a minute and a half. Well, you don't give them a 5-on-3 for a minute and a half. The 5-on-3 was killed, but during the 5-on-4, Orlov scores from Wilson and Carlson at 17:05, showing he knows exactly when to pinch on the play. Puts the Capitals in the lead, 3-2. Sad but true played over the PA in the building, which I thought was a nice touch. Sad But True is a great song for when the opposing team scores. That is one of the better songs in the league with that. Although I think it's Chicago that plays Tool when the opposing team scores, and that's kind of fun too. So 2:27 left. The Canes call a timeout, and they pulled Anderson. And at 18-19, it's John Carlson hitting the empty net and making it 4-2. That's your final score. Washington goes to 14-3-5. For the Canes, they dropped to 15-4-1. So the Caps go out there and they played a really good road game. The shots in this one were 10-7 Carolina in the first, 11-9 Washington in the second, 13-9 Carolina in the third. Final shots 32-25 for the Canes. Power plays, Washington goes 1 for 5, Carolina goes 0 for 3. The hits were 30-23 for Washington. Samsonov saves 30 out of 32. Anderson saved 21 out of 24. Good game. Battle of two of the top teams in the East. And today, Washington comes out with the victory. And with that, they are 2 points ahead now on the Carolina Hurricanes. So we'll see how things go from here. All right. Next up, last up in this case, is Tampa Bay and Minnesota. And again, very good game. Vasilevsky versus Talbot. There's an early press by the Wild. Dumba had a one-timer that was saved. Bolts get a power play. Pretty good cycle on the power play by Tampa, but it's killed off. Eriksson Ek had a wrister that was saved. The shots are 6-4 for the Wild 8 minutes into this period, so it's a pretty freewheeling start to this game as it was with that one. Kaprizov had a net feed that deflected away. Pressed by the Bolts at the half, but it is Minnesota that opens up the score. It's Bukestad from Sturm at 11:03. The lead doesn't last. Perry puts his point streak up to 4 games with a goal from Belmar and Sergachev at 11:51. So Corey Perry seemingly finding that scoring touch right now. The Bolts press was 7.5 minutes left. The Wild were getting the puck control, but whenever they had it, it felt like the Bolts were keeping him to the outside until on a turnover, and this is what throws that off, on a turnover, Rask scores at 16:28 from Fiala and Gaudreau. So the puck gets turned over behind the net, and that's where they catch him off guard, and Victor Rask with the goal. Hedman had a shot then. Talbot makes the save, but coming out of the first period, it's 2-1 for Minnesota. Second period, turnover to Kaprizov. Vasilevsky makes the save. Don't hand the puck to Kaprizov. He's pretty darn good. Commences today with 20 points in 22 games, and comes out of today with more points and more games. Duhaime and Cirelli were then battling. It wasn't a fight, but they were battling with one another there. Kachuk with a wraparound, that wouldn't go. Hartman and Joseph with a collision. Just one of those collisions that happens. Joseph gets the worst of it. Wouldn't return to the game. I had to get a kick out of this, though, that with 4 minutes left, they let the press know, by the way, Joseph won't be coming back. Yeah, there's 4 minutes left in the game. We had that figured out. So that took place. And then we end up with the Wild pressing at 7 minutes. Bogosian with a trip. The Wild get a power play on that. The Bolts killed it off. The Wild power play has been bad lately. And right after that, too, Bogosian had a chance out of the box. And yeah, so that's something they have to get to work on. Killorn would score from Stamkos at 9:24. So Stamkos also has a 4-game point streak going. The Bolts then press for the lead. The Wild get another power play. That was a no. Another Wild power play follows. Also a no, because the Wild's power play is bad. We went through this last year. Minnesota's power play would be terrible for like 10 to 15 games. That was fantastic for 10 games. Then it was bad for 5 or 6 games. It's weird how hot and cold it really is. Last minute, the Bolts get a power play. So that rolls over into the third. In the third period, they mentioned Joseph wasn't back, and it was from the Hartman hit. The Wild finished off the kill. Duhaime was denied in close by Vasilevsky, who had a very good game. Shots are 4-2 for the Bolts at 5 minutes, so they were maybe the better team at that point in the game. Colton Line was generating chances as well. Brodin had a net drive. Killorn defends on a rebound after that. Fiala, top corner try, was saved by Vasilevsky, but then Hartman scores from Kaprizov and Pitlick at 9:15. And it was a nice pass by Kaprizov, and then Hartman spins and scores. So he's up to 12 goals on the season. Best season I think Ryan Hartman's ever had already. And we're not even in December yet. So he has this really good chemistry with Kaprizov. We'll see how far he can go with it. Pressed by the Wild then with 7 minutes left. The Bolts get a power play with 6:27 left. There were some good opportunities for Tampa during that, but Minnesota comes up with the kill. Fiala had a chance that was defended. We're down to 3.5 minutes left. The goaltender gets pulled with 3 minutes left by Tampa. They're not shy about pulling the goaltender early. There was a net miss with 2:29 left, so that's icing. 6 on 4.5. Greenway dropped his stick for a moment there, and so it was 6 on 4.5, but they did clear it out. Greenway with the stick. and he missed the empty net when he got his stick back, so that's icing number 2. With 1:31 left, icing number 3. And Dean Evison, who I've talked about how he looks like Creed Bratton, because that's something that other people mentioned, and I went, yeah, he definitely looks like Creed Bratton. Yeah, he disagreed with that icing call completely. He didn't have to say anything. He didn't outwardly get angry necessarily, but he has this stare that he does. It's fantastic. And Dave Randorf, I was watching the Bolts broadcast. Dave Randorf loves it. Said that that's like the coach's face, that his is his favorite in the NHL. The Bolts get a timeout, call a timeout after that third icing. Well, what that does is it means that the tired skaters from Minnesota get a chance to have a break too. So there's a risk to that. And at center ice, Foligno gets a turnover, puts it in the empty net at 1943 to end any hope for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay loses 4-2. They drop to 12-5-3. Minnesota 14-6-1. Big game for them. Very impressive. Shots are 13-12 Minnesota in the first, 16-10 Minnesota in the second, 8 shots each in the third. Final shots 37-30 for Minnesota. Both teams go 0 for 3 on the power play. Hits were 27-21 for Minnesota, so they outshot them and outhit them. Vasilevsky, 33 saves on 36 shots. He was good. Talbot was better, 28 saves on 30 shots. Talbot, you would look at the amount of games he's played and say, are they overplaying him? And to this point, they're not. His numbers have been very good. So he's earned himself more starts. And so far, Minnesota riding Talbot looks like that's the smart move. Who saw that coming? All right, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.